Hi there! Today I'm sharing all the books that I bought at the Jaipur Literature Festival 2026 in their on-site crossword bookstore. And I thought to myself, if I'm sharing a book haul video all about all the books that I bought at Crossword, what's the best place to shoot this video? Yup, you guessed it right. I'm here at Select City Walk Saket, Delhi's crossword store, and I'll be talking about all the books that I bought at JLF from Crossword. So let's get started. The first book I'm going to talk about is by Anand Neelakantan. And this one is called Vanara, the legend of Bali, Sugriva and Tara. If you know me at all, you'll know that I love mythological fiction, like books that draw from mythology, especially Indian mythology. And that has been my jam since forever, be it Ramayana, Mahabharata, and the stories that are like expanding out of the two big epics. And of course, the religious aspect, stories surrounding Krishna, Shiva, Brahma. I love all of those stories. So Anand Neelakantan is a writer who I have been reading for over 10 years now. You know, his book, A Jaya series, I absolutely loved it. It showcases Mahabharata from the perspective of the Kauravas, and it really gave me a new perspective of looking at the Mahabharata epic. So that's why this time when I found his books at the store, I just couldn't help but pick it up. And guess what? I even got to meet him in person and get my book signed and speak to him. What a big fan moment I had.
They destroy everything and Takshaka's kingdom is destroyed and they call it development. What do? They build a city. They build a beautiful, unpolluted city, which is called Indraprastha, Delhi number. There is a curse where is given by Maya who himself built the city. So he curses that the city you build, you will never know peace. This city will rise and fall and rise and fall. Eventually they go back to Astinapura and not to Indraprastha.
So I'll quickly read the blurb out so you can also understand what the story is about, and I'll put it up here. Bali and Sugriva, brothers, orphans, born in abject poverty and brought up as slaves, belonging to the Vana Nara tribe, the people of the forest, who are often mocked by others as Vanaras, the monkey men. Sandwiched between the never-ending war between Deva tribes in the north and Asura tribes in the south, the Vana Naras have lost all hope. But Bali is determined not to die a slave. Aided by his beloved brother Sugriva, Bali builds a country for his people. The capital city, Kishkinda, becomes a beacon of hope for all the emancipated slaves from all over the world. A city of people, by the people, for the people, where there is no discrimination based on caste, creed, language, or the color of skin. Soon, fate intervenes through the beautiful Tara, the daughter of a tribal physician. Loved by Bali and lusted after by Sugriva, Tara becomes the cause of a fraternal war that will change history forever. So what really drew me to this book is the idea that there is a lot more to the story that we haven't yet explored inside the context of the Ramayana. I also particularly love how this book takes the form of a love story on top of the tale of the brothers. We also have the story of Tara, right? We see what's happening to her, we see her role in the story as well. And we realize that she's not just an instrument in Ramayana. She is an actual human being. And I think I really wanted to see that perspective without Rama and Lakshmana and Hanumana being in the focus. And that's why I picked it up, and I cannot wait to jump into this one. Next book is also by Anand Neelakantan. It's called Nala Damayanti, an eternal tale from the Mahabharata. As you know, I love Mahabharata, but I have no clue about this specific story. When Brahma, the creator, fed up with humans, wants to undo his mistake and erase them, Hemanga, the swan, is horrified and pleads with Brahma to give him a chance to prove true love exists among mankind. The little bird, however, is sent to the kingdom of Vidarbha by Narada. That celestial troublemaker, says Hemanga, should unite Nala, the king of Nishadas, with Damayanti, the princess of Vidarbha. So I'll be honest, I do know little bits and bits of this story, but I want to go into this book without having any preconceived notions. So I'm really excited to really visit one of these tales from the Mahabharata and understand what really happens to these characters who are sort of seen as almost as side characters in Mahabharata and mostly not even talked about enough. Third book on our list is again one from Anand Neelakantan, and I promise it's the last one by this author. It's called The Asura Way, The Contrarian Path to Success. This one is a non-fiction book, and it's a very interesting concept, and that's mainly why I picked it up. In the age of Kali, you need a new path to achieve all that you dream of. What if someone told you that those age-old lessons on which you've based your whole life are ineffective today? What if they also told you that you could live a better, more fulfilling life by following the path of the Asuras? Is it not worth investigating what made the Asuras so successful against even the gods and trying to learn from them in this age of strife, chaos, and discord? In his first non-fiction work, Anand Neelakantan, the national best-selling author of Asura, Tale of the Vanquished, explores a contrarian way of living that makes more sense in this Kali Yuga. With great skill and logic, Anand shatters the myths associated with the so-called 6 enemies of the mind: anger, passion, greed, infatuation, pride, and competitive spirit. He explains how following conventional advice holds you back from achieving success and happiness in life. Using riveting examples from mythology, he demonstrates how these same 6 qualities can propel you in the direction of success and help you achieve your goals. My first thought after reading this blurb was, is he really going to teach me about anger, pride, jealousy, and using all those in my real life? That could be a big disaster, right? But since I've already read a lot of fiction books by this author, I wanted to trust in his capability of trying to show me a newer perspective, and hopefully not a negative one per se, that you might typically expect from a blurb like this. Next, I want to talk about one of my other favorite writers, Ashwin Sanghi, who's also, I bought like 3 new books from him. I met him as well, and this moment was one of my most favorite fangirl moments that I could have had. I met him, I spoke to him, I even asked him a question in one of the panels.
So he picked up his glass of whiskey and he said, "Beta, remember one thing. In life, 99% is luck." So I said, "But uncle, 1% must be something. It must be hard work, talent, networking, management, efficiency, capital resources, so many things." So he took his glass, chucked it down very quickly, fully down. He says, 99% beta, good luck. 1% bloody good luck.
First one is this one called The Krishna Key, and this is not a new book. I have actually read this book before. I already own one of the previous versions of this book, but I love it so much that I wanted to get it in the newer cover as well. So this is actually a thriller, and one thing Ashwin Sanghi talks about is if you're trying to tell a lie, say it close to the truth. That's how he draws from mythology and writes these irresistible thrillers. I'm going to read out the blurbs just so you know exactly how he builds these thrillers using mythological elements. 5,000 years ago, there came to earth a magical being called Krishna who performed countless divine miracles for the good of mankind. Humanity was assured that he would return in a new avatar when the world needed him in the eventual dark age, Kali Yuga. In modern times, a poor little boy grows up believing that he is that final avatar. Except the boy is a serial killer. In his heart-stopping tale, the arrival of a murderer who executes his gruesome and brilliantly thought-out schemes in the name of God is the first clue to a sinister conspiracy to expose an ancient secret, Krishna's priceless legacy to mankind. From the submerged remains of Dwarka and the mysterious lingam of Somnath to the icy heights of Mount Kailash, from the sand-washed ruins of Kalibanganan to a Vrindavan temple destroyed by Aurangzeb, historian Ravi Mohan Saini must embark on a perilous quest to prevent a gross miscarriage of justice and discover the cryptic location of Krishna's most prized possession. And let me tell you, this blurb does not, so actually I don't think I can stop raving about this book at all. So this is one that if you want to check out Ashwin Sanghi's work, this is the one book I would tell you to pick up and read, because I would definitely know that you will love it. The next one I picked up, again by Ashwin Sanghi, is The Vishnu Vault. It's The Vault of Vishnu. I picked this one up because it gave me similar vibes from the Krishna Key as well. And I think he has the Bharat Alliance series, I think, right? Is that what it's called? I believe so. I think it's called the Bharat Alliance series. Like, these books are a part of a series. It's the Bharat collection. So they're all part of a collection, but from what I know, they are not related to each other in the form of sequels, but they have their own unique story, but they all come under the same umbrella of the type of books. And I'm hoping that this one will also give me that kind of intriguing elements from mythology, and also a fast-paced thriller that can be crossed together, like blended together and made into this super compelling story. I'm going to quickly read out the blurb. This one's shorter. A Pallava prince travels to Cambodia to be crowned king, carrying with him secrets that will cause many great wars many centuries later. A Buddhist monk in ancient China treks south to India, searching for the missing pieces of a puzzle that could make his emperor all powerful. A Neolithic tribe fights to preserve its sacred knowledge, oblivious to the war drums sounding on the Indo-China border. Far away in the temple town of Kanchipuram, a reclusive scientist deciphers ancient texts even as a team of secret agents shadows his every move. Caught in the Storm is a young investigator, like in all of Ashwin Sanghi's books. Caught in the Storm is a young investigator with a complex past of her own, who must beat all odds to maintain the balance of power in the new world. Much like its companions, volumes in the exciting Bharat collection, Master Storyteller Ashwin Sanghi's The Vault of Vishnu stretches the limits of storytelling, navigating the multiple timelines and geographies, and unearths arcane historical myths that will shock and delight its readers. I think another aspect which really drew me to this particular book in the Bharat collection is how it has a female protagonist, and I really wanted to see how Ashwin Sanghi will pull that off. Not that male writers cannot do it. In fact, I feel like there are only very few male writers who can pull off a female protagonist very convincingly. And in India, if I were to trust one such male writer, it would be Ashwin Sanghi for sure. The final book I picked from Ashwin Sanghi is this little one. It's called 13 Steps to Bloody Good Luck. It's non-fiction. I've already read it on the Kindle version. I absolutely love it. I wanted to grab the paperback version as well so I can reread it, mark it up, and have it on my shelf. Title of this book is a little gimmicky. It'll make you think, but how can you learn good luck? But mainly the primary concept of this book is how we can learn to attract good luck in our lives by taking certain specific steps and putting us in the way of good luck. Again, if you want me to make a full video on this one, let me know. Now let's talk about some of the books that I picked up by writers who I have never read before. And these were the books that I just found while I was exploring. I didn't know about most of these books beforehand or of the author beforehand. One of such books is this one called, it's called In Pursuit of a New Dawn, a collection of short stories by Anirban Bhattacharya. I've never heard of this author before. I've never read something from him before, but I picked this up purely because I loved the cover. Just look at it. It's so pretty. And I think, okay, I'll be honest, it is said that we shouldn't be judging books by its cover, but I actually was attracted to this book based on this gorgeous cover. I love how this looks very quirky. It has that quirky vibe to it, but also a lot of nostalgia associated with it, like that scooter right over here and the lantern and like the one bangle. I believe this is a bangle, right? It's a bangle. So the moment I looked at it, it had quirkiness and nostalgia coming together in one cover, and I couldn't help but pick it up. Another reason, aside from the cover, I think I really love the themes that the tigress is punished for liberating herself from pain and misery. An unlikely friendship between a school teacher and a child who sells tea leads to an unexpected situations. After a woman realizes she misidentified her, I can't say that word on YouTube, but you can read it here. She makes it her life's mission to fight for the wrongly convicted. This book is a collection of 8 such compelling narratives where ordinary people are in pursuit of a new dawn. Anirban Andy Bhattacharya looks at life that exists between right and wrong and delves into the transformative power of the human will in driving social change. This is a sensitive and evocative exploration of social stigmas, systematic biases and disparities, and how kinship and allyship can help dismantle inequity. These thought-provoking stories will inspire and compel readers to take action and bring about the change they want to see in the world. So I think the blurb already does a really good job of explaining the theme to you all. And yeah, this is a collection that I'm really looking forward to dive into. So the next book that I picked up is this Gita Wisdom through quotes. Basically, I picked it up for this one to be a coffee table book perhaps, and where, anytime I'm just having a bad day, I can pick it up and look at one of the quotes from the Gita. Or if my friends come over, some relatives come over, they can pick it up and, start a conversation about whatever comes up. So let's do a quick thing. Let's open a page and let's see which quote comes up. Okay, I love this quote. We can't drive out darkness, but we can turn on the light. Chapter 5, verse 16. Quite basic, but I think a very, very underrated message, which we all tend to forget when we're having a bad day. We feel like, oh, it's a bad life. Nope, it's just a bad day. And all we need to do is to remember to turn on that light. And this is exactly why I picked this up. So I can get these small daily positive reminders whenever I'm feeling low and whenever I feel like I need a little pick me up. The next book I picked up is this one. It's called On the Banks of Pampa by the writer Volga. And this is actually an English translation of the Telugu novel Pampa Teeram. And this has been translated by Purnima Tamireddy. I had the pleasure of meeting this particular writer at the panel, at JLF. She was on one of the panels, and the way she spoke about this story, I just couldn't help but get it. And I also got a picture with her. She signed this book for me, just like the other writers did. She actually signed it for me. And I want to talk about this book because I feel like it's a story I'm really interested in reading this particular story. This one is also one of the books that is drawing from mythology. And Volga is actually telling the story of Sabri. We all know the story of Sabri, who meets Rama, gives her the bears, and that is all we know about her. But now, I finally want to learn more about this one character who appears in this one episode of Ramayana. So I'm going to quickly read out the blurb. On the Banks of Pampa, a novel by the award-winning writer Volga tells the story of Sabri, a child of Aranyavasis, once enslaved by a colonizing state, of her escape from captivity and reunion with her guru Matanga Muni, of the journey of her spiritual awakening and birth into a voice of dissent for the oppressed. Hers is a narrative entwined with the forest along the Pampa River, one she comes to dwell in, where the human and non-human worlds exist in harmony. Powerfully translated into English by Purnima Tamireddy, this is a story of resistance, a story for the times we live in, drawn from the classic tale we know so well. Sabri's story, I only know that she was waiting for Ram, and that when Ram came, she actually offered him fruits, and that was sort of the story that most people know. But why was she waiting for Ram in the first place? What is the story? Like, where does her devotion of Ram even come from? That is the kind of story that I'm looking forward to reading inside this particular one. And the next book I picked up is a poetry collection by one of my friends, Saranya Subramaniam. It's called Absent People, Absent Places. And actually, Saranya was one of my batchmates at the MFA Creative Writing program, which I was pursuing at University of San Francisco. And it's such a funny story that both of us accidentally stumbled into each other at JLF 2026. She told me that her book had just launched that particular day. And obviously, being a good friend, being a good batchmate, a fellow writer, I immediately picked up her book. The next book I picked up is this one. It's called Samsara, Enter the Valley of the Gods by Saksham Garg. This is another writer who I networked with in one of the panels at JLF. And actually, I was also attending this publishing conclave at JLF, which is called Jaipur Bookmark. Over there, I met Saksham Garg in one of the panels and we spoke a bit. And after we chatted up, I really wanted to go and check out his book. And then eventually I got it signed by him as well. Now, this is also a book that draws heavily from mythology, but I think this will be categorized more as mythological fantasy than mythological fiction or a mythological thriller. Let me read out the blurb. What if you came face to face with the gods? Phones stop working, smartwatches die, and arms start glowing with blue scars. This is what happens to Aman Chandra and 10 other souls of Samsara when they are kidnapped from modern-day India and transported to a hidden valley in the Himalayas. In this realm of magic, home to Hindu gods, immortal yogis, and mythical beasts, the mission is clear for the souls of Samsara: to learn the ancient art of yogic sorcery and prepare for a treacherous journey not many can survive. But why must they go on this journey, and how are the gods connected to it all? Before they get any answers, the souls of samsara realize that there is a larger scheme at play. The king of gods has passed a controversial order, and Aman must make a tough decision that will change not just his life, but the fate of an entire nation. So, as some of you might not know, that Saksham Garg is not just a debutant author, but he's also a literary agent and an ex-editor with Penguin Random House. So, he's someone that I know is quite knowledgeable, and that's why I'm really looking forward to see how he has pulled off this mythological fantasy. I think the blurb is quite promising, and I cannot wait to jump into this one. The next book I picked up is this one, Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. This is a very famous book, so if you've not heard about it, I'll be very surprised. I have actually heard about this book from so many different places. Even when I was in the US and I was coming back, I was looking for this book in one of the bookstores, but I couldn't find it at the bookstores at the airport. So this time when I saw this in Crossword, I instantly picked it up. But let me read out the blurb so you know what this is about. One of the most outstanding classics to emerge from the Holocaust, Man's Search for Meaning, is Viktor Frankl's story of his struggle for survival in Auschwitz and other Nazi concentration camps. Today, this remarkable tribute to hope offers us an avenue to finding greater meaning and purpose in our lives. So I myself am on a personal growth journey, and I've been meaning to read books that will keep me inspired no matter what obstacles come in my life. I want to feel inspired and that I am on track in life. And while I was looking for books that will always keep me inspired, that will give me a story of hope and resilience, that's when this book's name popped up multiple times, be it online or offline when I was speaking to certain people. And because this comes up like so many times, I did not even have to think twice before purchasing this one. I'm yet to read it because I've heard that this is a very heavy story, especially because it's based on the time of the Holocaust. And of course, it's written by one of the survivors of the Holocaust. And while I've read other books before, I have read The Little Liar by Mitch Albom, which also touches on the same concept. I'm not sure how well I will be able to really process the heaviness coming from a book that has been written by a real survivor. So I'm a little scared of jumping into this one. If any of you have read it, especially because it's that famous, let me know your thoughts about this book in the comments. But either way, I'm sure that since I have picked it up, I will make time for it and go through this one. And now for the last set of books, all three of them that have been written by one of my most favorite female Indian writers, and that would be Kavita Kane. I absolutely love her writing. She writes about women from mythology and gives them voice, like their own authentic voice. She's written about so many famous and in fact non-famous mythological characters. She's written about Sita's sister, Karna's wife. She's written about, I think one of her books is called Fisherman's Queen, which talks about Satyavati's journey in Mahabharata. So she has given voice to so many of these mythological women. And that's why I actually picked up 3 more of her books which were missing from my collection. And I'm going to talk about these one by one. The first one is called Tara's Truce. And oh my God, I love the cover. I love the cover. And of course, we know that this is the same character that even Anand Neelkantan is writing about in his book. We talked about it in the beginning of this video. But I'm really excited to see how Kavita Kane has given her own voice to Tara, how she's made Tara unique and how she's added that female perspective and given the story entirely from Tara's perspective. And that's why I picked this one up as well. Let me quickly read out the blurb to you. A person of extraordinary intellect, foresight and determination, Tara is a master stateswoman, both before and after she marries Vali and is crowned the queen of Kishkinda. But her wisdom and stature cannot stand in the way of destiny. Tara finds herself caught in a battle of egos between the 2 brothers and reduced to a victor's trophy. However, in this time of conflict, she resourcefully restores peace and prosperity in the kingdom she helped build, even if it means sacrificing everything. Now, I'll be honest, I actually picked up Anand Neelkantan's book first, and I was going to call it a day after that one. But then I decided that, if I'm reading Bali, Sugriva's and Tara's story in that book, let's also read Tara's own perspective. And I'm really excited to see how both of these books will bring her story story to light as well. And I'm really hoping that my perspective will be shaped, will be fleshed out in a much more mature, a much more well-rounded way when I read both of these writers, Anand Neelakantan and Kavita Kane, together. Next book that I picked up by Kavita Kane is this one. It's called Bhima's Wife. And just look at the cover. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's so pretty, so beautiful. I loved how the person who designed it is able to capture the essence of this character in that one image. And more than that, I think I'm really excited to read this particular book because we've all read about other characters in Mahabharata. We've read about, Draupadi, we've read about Gandhari and Satyavati and all of those before. But this time I'm really excited because the story of Hidimbi, Bhima's wife, is not talked about enough. And that's why I'm really looking forward to jump into this one. And here's the blurb. Before Draupadi, there was Hidimbi, the first and the eldest Pandava daughter-in-law, a status denied to her throughout her life, through the years, down the centuries. She remains the forgotten wife, the forgotten queen, the forgotten woman in the Mahabharata. Hidimbi was a demoness by birth and a queen by right. In the shadows of the great Indian epic, she stands alone. She saved Bhima, she bore his son, she stood by the family that killed her brother, Hidim. And when the call of war came, she sacrificed her only child, Ghatotkacha, the first Pandava grandson, for a cause that never truly embraced her. Why was her story never told? Was it because she was a Rakshasi or because the heroes of the epic could do no wrong? Particularly excited to read this book because it doesn't seem to whitewash all the characters of Mahabharata, specifically the Pandavas. And I love how Kavita Kane had the courage to really put that on the blurb and make you wonder if really Pandavas did something wrong to this particular character, this woman who deserves to be a queen. So the final book I picked up by Kavita Kane, and it's also the last book of this video, is this one right here. It's called Saraswati's Gift, right? And the only reason I picked up this book is because I'm so curious to know about Goddess Saraswati. And just like it's mentioned on the blurb here, which I'll read it down in a second, we don't know much about this goddess. I feel like Lakshmi and Durga are talked about a lot more in the Indian religious context than Saraswati. So I wanted to know her story and where she comes from. So Saraswati, the feminine force worshipped as the goddess of art, music and knowledge, is a household name, yet we barely know much about her. She is known as the lost river and seen as the singular goddess, never as part of a couple, such as Shiva Parvati or Lakshmi Narayan. In Saraswati's Gift, Kavita Kane brings to light Saraswati's story told in the voices of nameless celestials, powerful gods and lesser mortals. The book explores her relationship with her creator, Brahma, and their unusual marriage, a union of fiercely independent minds, making them the most non-conforming and unconventional of the Trimurti couples. As these peripheral figures and silent catalysts take center stage, we get a glimpse of an extraordinary woman and her remarkable story, obscured and buried under myths and legends. I don't think I need to talk any more about this book because this is why I'm extremely excited to jump into this one, so I can learn all of that about Saraswati and by extension about Brahma as well. All I can say is if you're a mythological freak as well like me, check out Kavita Kane, all her books, her entire series, check her out as well, and make sure that you go and buy some of these books, be it Anand Neelakantan or Kavita Kane or Saksham Garg, all of these people. She as well, in fact, I had my fangirl moment with Kavita as well. I met her, she signed the book for me, I took a picture and I attended some of her panels as well. This was such a one-of-a-kind experience I had at JLF this year, and I'm so proud of myself for having documented it so beautifully in my vlogs and in this particular video. I hope this has helped you somewhere. I hope all the books that I've picked up have given you some ideas about what you could be reading as well. You can check out the links to all these books in my description box. And of course, a big shout out to Crossword for allowing me to come over here and shoot in their premises. I'm so happy that we have such bookstores in India that are able to give us access to these amazing books and resources for us readers to, fall in love with. And yep, go check out your nearest Crossword store as well, and all these books will be available at all Crossword retailers as well, and also in the link in my bio. And that's all I have to say. Thank you so much.